Whether you're thinking about getting into the computer science field or are ready to get a job as a software engineer, I'm going to show you exactly what you need to do to get companies to notice you and to hire you starting right now. Before you even start interviewing, you'll have to have a pretty decent resume showcasing some impressive work. And this doesn't mean you need to show or prove that you've held a full-time job in the industry, though it does help your chances. This is really more about the stuff you've done while you were in school or learning programming. To make it easy to understand, there are 3 things that will make your resume stand out, and please note that they may not all apply to you depending on how you've learned to code. And if you haven't seen that video, click up here. Also, make sure you watch until the end where I'll give you the most important piece of advice to land that job. The first tip, and usually the most important, is to showcase a set of projects you've worked on in school. If you are able to publish the code publicly on GitLab, that's even better. This gives potential employers a chance to look at the wonderful code you've written, and make sure that if you do add these projects to your resume that they are complex enough to show mastery of some skill. For example, a good project to include would be one where you wrote a web server with some APIs that return some results from a database and do some sort of transformation logic. This will show that you understand a full stack application as long as your code is readable. A not so good project would be one that you hacked together the night before it was due with a bunch of duplicated code. Do not show this, as this will leave a bad impression. Be reasonable with what you show off and make sure it's your best work. First impressions on everything, and you'll want to make sure your resume isn't skipped. Next up is internships or jobs. If you've done any internships during your time or held any programming related jobs, make sure to note those on your resume. Be sure you fully understand your previous job function and can intelligently communicate the work you've done. It's super important to show mastery of the job you performed. For example, if you write down that you created some automation script, in addition to explaining what your code did, it's important to know who or what was impacted. This will make you stand out from others. And a bonus tip here is to follow a context, problem, and impact breakdown. It will make it easy for those reading your resume or interviewing you to understand what exactly your project was about. Going back to the automation script example, say I created a script to automatically register employee badges once they were hired. You can talk about the existing problem, which is badges were manually registered, which took up to 10 minutes of employee time. Then talk about how you did it. Say you wrote a Python script that automatically triggered the registration by connecting 2 APIs. And then the impact, which gets into how much time you saved the company and how much happier your customer was. Try using this the next time you explain your work to someone and let me know how it works out. The third tip is your GPA is important. Let's face it, GPA does matter, and it shows that you were able to complete a program successfully. Usually anything above a 3.0 is decent enough to land you the interview with many companies, but you'll want to strive for a 3.5 or higher just to get into these top tier companies. Be sure when you put your resume together that it's up to date and that it accurately reflects your skills. You don't want to put that you are proficient in C++ and not be able to explain a language, nuance, or write a function. Be sure you brush up on everything you put on your resume, and it's totally fine to leave things out if you aren't very comfortable with it. Though, it's totally fine to mention that you've tried learning a language during the interview. For example, if I haven't coded in C since freshman year of college, which I actually haven't, if the interview asks about it, I would simply mention I took a course years ago and can brush up and be effective. So those are 3 ways you can get your resume noticed. But what exactly do you need to do while you wait for a call? Well, now it's time to get into practice mode. Well, I would actually say to never stop practicing. You should be well prepared well before an interview is scheduled. And when I say practice, I mean really sitting down and cranking out code for several weeks or even months. Preparation is key for these super technical interviews, and it won't help you much to wait until interview day to start practicing. You will get questions that will test your computer science knowledge and coding abilities, and these are the top things that most employers will expect you to know. Data structures, basic algorithms, and coding ability. Those 3 things. It goes without saying you must know your data structures. It's really as simple as that. Get out the old textbooks, watch some YouTube videos, and be sure to know what they are, how they're useful, how to implement them, and time complexities. You should know what they are immediately. For example, if I ask you, what's a hash map? Could you answer that right away? If so, that's great. If not, I suggest you start doing some reading. Some may ask, what makes a good hash function? How do you resolve collisions? Make sure you can answer these questions and how they can be applied to real-world scenarios. Some other data structures you'll want to know are lists, trees, sets, queues, stacks, and so on. And this isn't an exhaustive list, but hopefully you get the gist. Just really make sure you know your data structures. Now onto basic algorithms. You'll want to know your sorting algorithms, search algorithms like binary search and linear search, dynamic programming, and string matching. Again, this isn't an exhaustive list, but I suggest you dive into each of these algorithms and understand their function, how to implement them, their runtimes, and what they're useful for. The best way to learn these is by practicing LeetCode or HackerRank problems and applying the stuff you've already learned. Speaking of runtimes, be sure you understand how to calculate complexities for the code you write. This is extremely important as this shows mastery of the skills you've picked up. I won't bore you too much by diving into each of these algorithms, but I've linked a few other videos up here for that. Now, the most important tip I'll leave you with is to practice, practice, and practice. And by this, I mean go onto sites like LeetCode and HackerRank and work your way through a bunch of problems. They range from easy all the way to hard, so take it at your own pace. Nothing beats the actual application of all the knowledge you've picked up. So get to it, let me know if this helps, and if you haven't yet, make sure you're subscribed, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.